Hello ladies and gentlemen, Gaming Medley here, and welcome to my series MedleyTalks, a series where I give you a medley of my thoughts on current issues and news in the gaming sphere. Today we are talking about how and why Konami has cut out the most important story information from Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. This is going to be a free-form rant style video with no specific form or function other than to just talk about this issue and get it out to you guys, the consuming public. If you don't like the sound of that, good day, sir! For the three of you that stayed, let's begin. So collector's edition buyers of Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain got with the game a Blu-ray disc as their bonus for paying more for the product, essentially. Now what this Blu-ray disc contained was a variety of concept art, some cutscenes. If anybody has ever gotten one of those behind the scenes art books or a behind the scenes book about a movie or a game, this Blu-ray disc essentially contained all of that stuff. What it also contained, and what is the most important thing it contains, was an unfinished episode of the game called Episode 51, Kingdom of the Flies. For those of you who don't know, Metal Gear Solid 5 currently stands at 50 episodes. This means that the 51st episode, which was cut from the game and was not released with the game to most of the people who bought it, was supposed to be the finale of this game. It was supposed to be the ending, it was supposed to tie it in with the other games in the series chronologically, and it also had the most impactful story moments of this series. Why you should care about this is because Metal Gear Solid 5 has been criticized by a variety of people for being much more lackluster story-wise than any other games in the series. Metal Gear games are usually, if not story-heavy, story-confusing enough that you can get a lot out of diving into the lore of a Metal Gear game. Metal Gear Solid 5, on the other hand, seemed to not have much distinguishable lore or story to talk about. So it pissed a lot of people off when they found out that the most important story information was actually cut from the game by Konami. Now, there's a lot of speculation going around as to why this extremely ultimately important part of the game was cut, and what most people have settled on is that Konami probably just cut it due to time constraints. They were afraid that if they continued developing this final mission of the game, that the game would overrun its development time and they would have to delay it. So they probably just said, hey, scrap it, cut it, we're just going to release it without that entire episode of this game. Now, why this is a bad idea, other than all the obvious reasons, is that they simply had no reason to do this. They had no reason not to delay Metal Gear Solid 5 in order to make it a more complete game. The reason is the game didn't really have any competition coming out in the few weeks after it. They could have easily delayed this game by a few weeks and even a month, and it still probably would have sold just as well, especially if they said, hey, we're spending more time making the story more complete, and you'll have a really cool revelation at the end of this game if you just wait for a month for us to be able to finish this, and then it will get released to you. The only competition Metal Gear Solid 5 had coming out was Mad Max, and they probably actually lost a few copies of Metal Gear Solid 5 to Mad Max buyers that they wouldn't have lost if they had delayed the game by 2 weeks or maybe a month. So it makes absolutely no sense for Konami to have axed this cutscene in order to release the game on time. However, that is something Konami would do. We have seen repeatedly how shitty Konami is just in general. We have seen they treat their workers extremely shittily. They have been found to demote developers to janitorial positions within the company after they've finished working on a game and essentially have no use to the company anymore. It's been revealed that they monitor their employees. They blacklisted a variety of journalists simply for giving semi-critical opinions of their games, Jim Sterling being the most notable journalist who has been blacklisted by Konami for, really no reason whatsoever, or at least no valid reason whatsoever. Konami have just been huge shitlords. They turned Silent Hills into a pachinko machine. They canceled the Guillermo del Toro game, which was supposed to revitalize one of the greatest franchises and probably the greatest horror video game franchise that has ever existed. Konami has been an absolute shitfest over the past few years and have been treating everyone around them extremely shittily. We saw this with how they took Kojima's name off of the Metal Gear Solid 5 box cover. That is not, he devoted so much creative energy into this, and it was going to be his magnum opus of the Metal Gear series, and then they just stripped his name from it, essentially taking away his rights and the recognition he gets from the game. People are just going to be like, who developed this? Konami? Okay, obviously most gaming fans will know that a guy named Kojima did it, and when you load up the game you see Kojima Productions. But this is also the last game that you'll ever see that on by Konami, because they are dissolving his studio directly after this game is patched up and gotten out the gate. Kojima Productions will be no more unless he decides to hire all the people in it and then do a Kickstarter with them, which I hope he will do because he's an extremely brilliant man, definitely one of the most, if not the most brilliant minds in gaming right now, and I know that a Kickstarter he does would be extremely successful. But that's not what we're here about. What we're here about is the fact that this cutscene was cut from this game, and it makes absolutely no sense to do so. Not from a development standpoint, not from a publishing standpoint. There is simply no reason for this cutscene to have been cut. It's really kind of a tragedy, I guess, for those who really wanted some finality and closing from the Metal Gear series. As I said, this cutscene tied this series into Metal Gear, which is the next game in the series chronologically. It had a lot of really impactful moments. I watched this cutscene because I finished the story missions recently. I watched this cutscene and it's extremely impactful. It's amazing. I'm going to link it in the description below. You shouldn't watch it if you haven't finished the game, but if you have, I definitely suggest watching it because it's important. This is not just any little thing that has been released to the public somehow. This is a very important, impactful finale for this game. The other thing that doesn't make sense is that they started development for the finale of the game last, and you might be saying that makes total sense. Obviously, they started development for the end of the story at the end of the story. Yes, but a lot of places get all of the most important story plot points developed before anything else. We've seen it multiple times where in Dark Souls, for example, they developed all the really important stuff first, all the really important boss fights and everything first, and they ended up having to cut out some stuff from like the old Londo ruins and stuff like that, but it was fine. Nobody noticed because that wasn't stuff that was vital to the game. This cutscene was absolutely vital to Metal Gear Solid 5. It was absolutely vital to the series' story. It was absolutely vital to the series as a whole, just in terms of existing as a mission. So the fact that it was cut is definitely deplorable. It's a deplorable action from Konami, and there is currently at least one petition to get it back in the game. I'll try to link that in the description. I will link it if I can find it in the description of this video, and I would highly suggest you all go sign those. Konami won't do shit about it, but whether or not a publisher or a company will do shit about their consumers being angry doesn't matter. What matters is that the consumers stand up for themselves and that the company knows they made them angry, because even if they don't do something now about it, you can bet that they won't make the same mistake with whatever their next game is, should it be good, if they know that their fans are angry about whatever they've done. People ask me, like, why should I go vote? Why should I care about this? Why should I get angry about this? Why should I let this company know I'm angry about this? It doesn't matter, they won't change it. It doesn't matter whether or not the company you're angry at changes what you're angry about. What matters is you took the ethical principle and you took the ethical stand to tell them that what they were doing wasn't okay. And even if they don't do something about it, it still reaches their ears and it still affects how people think about the company you're angry at as a whole. So I would strongly suggest going on forums, protesting this, signing petitions to try and get this cutscene developed and in the game, and really doing whatever you can think of to let Konami know that you're displeased with their decision to cut this extremely vital story information from the game. If you are displeased with that, I mean, this was a fully voice acted, fully developed cutscene mission from the game. They didn't have much development time left, is what it looks like from the cutscene. It looks like they didn't have too much development time left. What they cut out and what they weren't able to add in fast enough, I guess, in order for it to make it in to the final release of the game, was the playable part of the mission. Because obviously there are parts of this mission that were going to be playable by the player. It looks like they didn't have time to develop those, and that is what the petition for is, either to just get this released in a full, complete, just cutscene version, or to get the full mission released in all of its playable glory. Now, there are a few options in terms of this cutscene and in terms of whether or not we will see it released. One option is that Konami could give it to the fans later as some sort of surprise DLC or something like that, and say, oh, the collector's edition thing was just a teaser, just a taste, we just wanted to release it later. If this happens, chances are they're going to make you pay for it, which is disgusting. Anybody who sells the end of their game, we saw it with Capcom, it never turns out well. Let's just say that. companies trying to sell vital story stuff to players after they've already released the game it's supposed to be for, that never turns out well. And it's also completely despicable anti-consumer bullshit from whatever company does it. The other option is that they will just never release this and we'll just have to sit tight and see if Kojima ever does something about it, which is unlikely, but hopefully he'll come out and talk about it. What I find confusing, but what also gives me hope in terms of this whole debacle, is the fact that it was actually on collector's edition Blu-ray discs. That makes me think that Konami probably was wanting to do something with it. Unless Konami is so out of touch with their fan base that they didn't think people would get angry at the finale of Kojima's last game getting cut out, then the fact that they actually released what seemed to be a teaser version of this, or like an unfinished version of this, to the public, to the people who bought the collector's edition, kind of makes me hope that they actually do have some plans for it, but there's no way to absolutely know. And just wrapping up this video, I would just like to say that I hope that anybody who watches this video will take into time and into consideration going on forums, petitioning to get this cutscene put back in the game, and letting Konami know that they aren't accepting this completely disowned, distant, shunning relationship that the company currently has with their fan base or what they're doing to their employees. Okay, I think I've said everything I wanted to say. In the background, you probably watched me take out a communications camp or something. Feel free to leave a like, a dislike, a comment, share, subscribe. Anything that you think this video deserves helps. Thank you all so much for watching. Medley